So Kevin, I heard that you're going to be doing a session on needs assessment at an upcoming BC ODN session, and just want to kind of talk to you a little bit about, you have a lot of experience in the early days. What some of the pitfalls are around doing needs assessments with clients.
Okay, thanks, and I'm really looking forward to speaking next week and really engaging the group in a discussion about what's worked for them and what's not worked. Pitfalls are always great to talk about because we learn so much from them. I think there's a fine balance. So a client calls you with a specific need. It might be based on their vantage point and what's immediate and right in front of them. I think there are lots of things we can do to be prepared.
Yeah. And
then I think we can also be overly prepared. So to your point about pitfalls,
yeah.
I think one of the things we all could do better is to be prepared. And so some of the things to be prepared, a client calls you from a specific organization. We have so much access to information these days through internet, the website, their website, LinkedIn, that we can access prior to meeting with the client. When a client wants to meet with us, is to one, just demonstrate respect that we've taken the time to understand their organization and their needs more broadly. So some of the things I would do would be to prepare to do website search, to understand the issue and how it might connect to higher level needs. So they know reports, they know their strategy, and their imperatives. Talk to people in my own network who might know that organization and ask them questions. Also understand the individual. Getting back to pitfalls, sometimes we can be overly prepared. We can come with a set of questions on what they need, on what we think their need is, and try to expand that. The need always relates to probably a bigger issue and a bigger part of the system. So we can tie it back to higher pieces in the system. So if it's customer complaints or customer issues, it could relate to retention of key people within their customer care area. It could relate to turnover. It could relate to training. It could relate to motivations of the individuals. It could relate to so many other things. But how does that build? Is that one of their strategic objectives, and what's the impact of not doing anything? So we can have a set of questions and be really prepared. But one of the pitfalls, I think, is being overly prepared. So you come to your client meeting, and you start to understand what the individual, what the issue might be, and then you have a set of 10 questions. And I remember very early on in a conversation just rifling through those questions. So the other balance of that is also listening and allowing the client to take you on a path that you may not have intended for your meeting, but being able to still orchestrate and direct the meeting to get back to your questions, but listening really, really well, I think is a key thing, which I found in my sort of earlier days in needs assessment and uncovering needs is you tend to you get the questions down, and then you tend to just keep going. Really listening to the client is an important part of it as well too.
So what I'm hearing is that one of the things to make sure to do is do some of that prep work up front, so that you're looking at annual reports or whatever you can find online or through your contacts to understand strategic objectives. So you want to speak that language with the client. And then the other thing I'm hearing is that as you prepare like questions or like based on your understanding, that you're still flexible enough to really adapt to the conversation and be fully present with the client.
Exactly. The thing I always have in the back of my mind is some of the work that Covey did around building trust and the speed of trust. And what you're trying to do very initially in that client meeting is build some trust with credibility and trust with the client. And the two things that Covey talks about, one is character and competence. So you want to demonstrate that you've done your homework, you're competent in terms of the questions you're asking, you're helping them see some things maybe differently than maybe they have been, but you're also building character, and that's part of the listening part. It's really understanding where they're at and starting with where they're at, and taking back and reflecting back some of the things they're telling you back, and building that into your conversation. So it's trying to balance that piece between competence and a little bit of expertise on questioning, and also being a really great listener as well too.
The thing that really resonates with me when I hear you talking about this is that you're doing a needs assessment, but you're also building that relationship out and that trust, because the assessment process is not just a one-time kind of conversation. You're really looking to also kind of have that longer-term relationship.
Exactly, and one of the things, because what we're talking about in needs assessment really is about business development is business development and sales. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes it's not the best word for an OD practitioner to think about sales, but one of the great lessons I think I've learned is from someone I worked with a few years ago was, you know, if there's a problem that a client has and I can help, or I and my team can help solve that, then we can continue to have that conversation. If there's not, then it's been a great conversation, and either I can refer them to someone who can do that work or help them, or it's just been a good conversation. So at the end of the day, if I can have a really good discovery conversation with the client, build character and demonstrate character and competence in that conversation, and it works out, we proceed to work together. Great. If it doesn't, then I wasn't the right person to help solve that problem for them, and maybe I can help them solve that. So I don't think of it as a sales piece or even needs assessment. It's just a really good conversation with clients to help them solve the problem.
So Kevin, how do you kind of drive towards actually outcomes when it comes to needs assessment? And what is the outcome? You know?
I think one of the things is really is not ever losing the vision and the expectations of the client in terms of outcomes. Yes, you want to expand the opportunity for two reasons. One is to fully make sure that you're understanding the need and can actually address the need in a more systemic way rather than just, you know, inoculating and giving them an immediate solution to their need or their perceived needs. So I think you want to expand that, but you want to truly understand the client's outcomes. Sometimes meet those short-term immediate outcomes, but also put in place some of the other things that might engage longer-term success and longer-term opportunity. So if a client's calling with their hair on fire, you can't say, okay, yeah, great, your hair is on fire, but we got to address these other things. You want to address their immediate needs, and at the same time demonstrate to them how if you do this, it'll support this higher level organization lead. Or if you do this but don't do some of the other things, which is your future opportunity to partner with them, you won't be as effective. So for me, an outcome, a successful outcome is meeting the client's needs, but also being able to expand their thinking to understand how the problem might relate to higher level needs that might help you engage in helping them and partnering with them for the longer term. So if I think of an example, an organization I worked with, government organization I worked with, had called me specifically around communications at the management level, and as opposed to, you know, talking to them about communication, what it means, what it doesn't mean, some of the programs that we had that we could offer from a solution perspective, I really asked if we could meet with them, understand what is the issue around communication. And what we started to do through a number of conversations was, it wasn't just about communication, it was about leadership at the court operations level. So this was in government with the Attorney General's office. Understand what the issues were. It was an issue of leadership and change in leadership, and so we had a lot of leaders who were exiting the organization, and there was a new way of how things were done. Managers in that organization needed to deal with the public, needed to deal with the legal system, needed to deal with so many different levels of the organization, and those organizations are changing themselves, and how managers needed to communicate, one, to their stakeholders and to their staff was changing. So we started to do is have conversations with them about the needs for leadership. What are the competencies and requirements for leadership going forward based on where the organization is going? And let's build something around that. And what ended up happening is we became part of the steering team. So myself and a group of our consulting team became a group that actually planned their leadership strategy year over year for 4 years. We visited all the courts, we visited some of the jails. We actually saw what leadership looked and felt like in that organization. And so one, purely from a trust and competence and being able to help the client, we were able to help the client in a much broader way than just helping them with communication skills. And then from a commercial and revenue perspective, we were, you know, as opposed to selling, say, 3 training programs, we were architects and we were the dreamers and the drafts people. We helped devise a strategy for leadership, and then we helped them execute on it. And that was a year-over-year relationship for 4 years, which was really, really beneficial financially and also just personally for all of us who do this work. So
that really makes me think about how things would be different if we approached each opportunity or client telling us a need and we approached it really from that longer term kind of relational aspect.
Yeah.
And that's a really kind of motivational or inspirational story about how those things can work out. So I think a lot of people in the BC ODN are external kind of consultants. Do you have any advice for them as they kind of approach clients with their needs assessments?
Sure. We talked about internal and external consultants. I think the role can be very much the same. I think the work you need to do to understand the business goals and strategy, the leaders that you're talking to and helping them devise their talent management strategy is the same. I think one of the key differences with being an external consultant, whether you're an independent in a small boutique or part of a larger firm versus being an internal, is you can get focused on the revenue, on the goal and winning the business.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bad place to go, because if you get focused on that, on winning the deal, on impressing the client, because you may not have that longer term ability to build a relationship. When you're an internal, you get known.
Yeah.
When you're internal, so you might want to do too much too quickly, and you might want to close the deal too fast. And you might want to demonstrate that you're the expert. And I think that's one of the major pitfalls for some in my experience, being an external, is trying to demonstrate that, because you might charge fees, and you might charge. There's always that commercial side of it. You might always try to move to the close too quickly, so that'd be one pitfall.
Yeah.
I think take the time to understand the client and the need, and ask the questions to build the trust. And I've always said, don't think of it as sales as a business development meeting, and that's been primarily my role over the years in consulting, is managing the business development function, whether doing it or supporting my team in doing it. And I've always said, forget about the number, which is probably the worst thing for a sales leader to say. Forget the number, think about the conversation. And that'd be the advice I would give to externals, is about having the conversation. If you can have a great conversation with clients, that's one of the, and not worry about the revenue and closing the deal, that'd be one piece of advice. And the other one is, we tend to sometimes always think about our practice and our solution and what we're really good at. Be open to what the problem is, and if you can't help solve the problem, rely on your network. So, for example, BC ODN, there are probably various people within the network that you could bring in and rely on.
Yeah.
So sometimes, as practitioners, we tend to see the solution through the vantage point of our experience and our eyes on the solution, and at the end of the day, we want some of that business. So if we're emotional intelligence experts, if we're conflict experts, if we're assessment experts, if we're coaching experts, we tend to drive the solution that way. Think more broadly about what the client needs, and if your expertise can help that, great. If not, bring in the right people to do that. And I think the best way to do that is to always focus on the business need of the client. I don't think you can develop strong communities of practice until you've got the customer voice at the table. And if it's not engaging them in your community of practice as part of the process, making sure that you're having enough external conversations with clients as an external, with clients and decision makers, so that you build that into your practice as well, into your community of practice.